Hello everybody and welcome back to this video where we are diving into Luminar Technologies, which is a LiDAR company. This is based on one of the requests from one of our subs who said, hey, can you please check one of these companies and see what your thoughts are around it? And we said, yes, of course, let's give it a shot. So let's jump into it. So who is Luminar Technologies? Well, they're based an autonomous vehicle sensor and software company that focuses on delivering capable LiDAR to make vehicles autonomous in a safe and ubiquitous way. And if I should try to explain what LiDAR is in an engineering way, and keep in mind I'm not an engineer, I don't have expertise, but it is basically a method for measuring distances by eliminating the target with laser light and measuring the reflection with a sensor. So the difference in the laser return times and wavelengths can then be used to make a digital 3D representation of the target. So imagining a car that is driving around using this technology, it can basically identify targets, it can see how far away it is, and it can map them in a 3D way. So this is my way of saying it. How Luminar Technologies states is that they are taking the guesswork out of autonomy, and they are the standard for performance and safety in the industry. We reliably see where the objects are and what they are, even at long distances. Farther sight means enough time to react safely, even at highway speeds. And highway speeds is something that we're really going to focus on later in the video on Luminar Technologies. So for some of us non-engineers, what is basically the role of sensors in autonomy? Well, neither a camera nor camera fused with radar offers high confidence in 3D perception, and lack of confidence leads to limited and inconsistent safety performance, the requirement for human supervision. So again, some of the things you really want to avoid in autonomous vehicle is obvious that there's a safety breach and the car crashes into something, or that you as a human really needs to sit and interact with that. That is obviously in the last level of self-driving autonomy. In lower levels, you still need some human supervision, but they are trying to take it to the next level where human interaction is not included. And high resolution long range LiDAR sensing adds the detection, classification and range measurements, confidence to unlock highway autonomy, again as we just mentioned, and reliable and consistent safety functionality. So out here Luminar tries in a simple way to benchmark itself against camera, radar and traditional LiDAR. And again, what they're saying is that they are superior to most of the threes in resolution and range, on the precision and location, the performance and weather, meaning how it operates, for example, when it rains and snows or it's foggy, and on a color scale is the only place where it is not as good as, for example, the camera. So basically what Luminar is trying to say here, and some of the very important aspects from a safety and human supervision perspective, on a general note, with the exception of color, Luminar LiDAR is superior to the other types of equipment. So for some of you out there who have heard about this in a bit more detail before, you have probably heard about LiDAR versus cameras. And basically the argument is whether to use LiDAR with camera system or just use camera systems without LiDAR. And Elon Musk from Tesla, the CEO, has stated that anyone relying on LiDAR is doomed. So far, it has not been a good idea to bet against Elon Musk. Most of the one that has bet against him has been so far wrong. So again, this is a very interesting point, because it basically means, is LiDAR actually going to be needed in the future, or is it going to be obsolete because the camera systems are going to be so good? We are going to stay out of this discussion simply because we do not have the technical knowledge to state whether one of them are true. But what is interesting is that Tesla is outnumbered as more companies and developers are in support of LiDAR. So the pros around the cameras, again, it's more reliable from a vision and system perspective. It has advantages in visual recognition as it's working with AI to identify objects on the road. It can also read text from road signs, which is obviously very important if you're going for a detour or you have road work ahead with a lot of signs that the car needs to respect, basically. And it uses optics combined with computer vision that provides computational imaging that continuously analyzes the images on the camera. The pros on the LiDAR part is that it plots out points on a virtual map in real time using the light pulses or the lasers. Autonomous vehicle or self-driving cars can use this data to safely navigate and avoid hitting objects. LiDAR systems with a high level of accuracy and reliability can improve safety, again, which is one of the main talking points about self-driving cars. Nobody wants to go into a self-driving car if they don't feel it's safe. It's as simple as that. So, there's no simple answer to this complex problem as far as we can see. If the safety is the primary concern, combining LiDAR and camera systems will probably be necessary, at least as of today. LiDAR may become unnecessary if the visioning system, for example the software and the sensors, becomes more accurate and reliable on the cameras. But again, what if the system fails? And this is one of the high risk in terms of using cameras only, and that's why a lot of people believe that you need to combine the pros from the camera with the pros of LiDAR. So now that we have cleared out the technology discussion, let's take a look at Luminar Technologies in more details. And basically it was founded in 2012-13 by Austin Russells, and they have been working since then on different products. We will come into them in more detail, so we will not go into it in detail now. And they have expanded their businesses through acquisitions and through partnerships. And as you can see here, in 2017 they had 4 partnerships, and today they have 50. And we are also going into more details on them later in the video. So as you can see, despite being a relatively young company, they have already developed quite a bit over the last 7 to 8 years. And here you can see some of the selected investors that they have, where one of the big ones is obviously the Daimler group here. You have Volvo out here, so 2 of the big automotive manufacturers. They have 350 people across the globe who are developing the business. They have in Germany the Autonomy software and customer integration. They have something in Sweden, they have in Israel, and they have in Japan, on top of obviously what they have in US, where their main business is. So let's take a look at some of the LiDAR products that they have developed or are developing as of today. The first one is the Hydra, which started selling Q1 2020 this year, and basically that is being sold on a subscription basis, and it's used for highway with road tracking out to 80 meters, lanes to 150 meters, and objects to 250 meters. So again, focus on the highway part here. A lot of the technology that is being developed as of today on the LiDAR side is focusing on urban areas and not on highway. And this is one of the areas where Luminar Technologies wants to differentiate itself. Then you can see that it is connected up to a 30 watts power to what they call the Luminar perception computer. So you have the things out here, so you can see that the hardware and the software part are separated. Then you have the next one that they're developing as of today, which is called Iris, and it's expected to start in 2020. And this one features a camera-like resolution greater than 300 points. So it's basically an upgrade from the Hydra. It boosts the range again up to 500 meters. And in this one, it bundles hardware and software into a single package. It comes in 2 different flavors, which will be a more less sophisticated and more sophisticated, and there will be a cheaper, what they call ADAS version, that has the similar function for autonomous vehicle, but where the human interaction is still needing, as you see today. So you can see clearly here, it's a lot smaller, it's a lot more compact. It's probably going to look a lot nicer if it's going to be placed on, for example, trucks or cars. So Luminar Technologies wants to differentiate themselves and basically be the world's first autonomous solution for series productions, and they want to be that across all verticals. So they want to be on passenger vehicles, where they're developing something with Volvo. They want to focus on the trucking part, which is with Daimler, and finally they also want to focus on robo-taxis. You've probably heard a lot about that, where Tesla wants to develop their own self-driving vehicles that can basically be hired as you want, and it's being driven by itself, not by a person. And they are in a partnership with Toyota around this, and this is where they see Iris as being one of the most important ingredients to make this successful. So by crossing across all verticals, basically Luminar Technologies wants to address the total addressable market within LiDAR. And they're trying to illustrate this in this graph, where they're saying robotaxis in the future, it will only be around 15 billion, adjacent market 17 billion, Legacy ADAS is going to be 15 billion. This is basically where you still have a car that needs some sort of human interaction. And then where the big part is going to be is highway autonomy, where you have commercial trucking. That's going to be 60 billion. And they're going to have consumer vehicles, which is people still having a self-autonomy driving vehicle that they own. It's going to be 120 billion. So they believe still that the huge part of the market in 2030 is going to be where people own their own vehicles and not in robo-taxis. Quite interesting statement, but still they are targeting all of it, which means that there obviously is going to be a lot of business opportunities for them to grow revenue and their business. So really interesting stuff, and this is one of the things that we find really interesting with Luminar, that is that they're not just going after a specific market, they're going after the total addressable market. So as I mentioned earlier in the video, Luminar Technologies has really broadened their partnership agreements over the last year. They have gone from 4 in 2017 to 50 in 2020. And one of the big partnerships that they have is with one of the investors, which is Volvo. And in 2022, they expect the rollout of the Iris on the passenger vehicles. And basically, this is what they consider a flagship customer as of today that will de-risk the industrialization of the product. It will enable them to get some economics of scales, and it will accelerate the widespread adoption of the product. So this is really good to see that they already have a good partnership agreement with a large automotive manufacturer which is going to use their product, and hopefully will be so successful that a lot of other automotive manufacturers will jump on board. Then on the trucking part, they're working, as we said, with Daimler, which is also a huge player. And again, here they're trying to have the same strategy as what they're going to do with Volvo, that is to get some economics of scale. And what is interesting is that the Daimler truck, as you see down here, has a 40% market share of the North American Class 8 trucking market. So there is some kind of scale there. They are pursuing a common goal of bringing series-produced, highly automated Level 4 trucks to road globally. And Daimler Trucks acquired a minority stake in Luminar. So again, this is not just some kind of fluffy partnership between the two of them where Daimler may or may not use them. No, they have an ownership stake in them. So you will definitely see them applying Luminar technologies, which is again really good for Luminar to grow their business. Another place where Luminar is again benchmarking itself against some of its competitors, specifically within the LiDAR industry, that is where they're looking at the original equipment and manufacturer specification requirement for autonomous vehicle driving, and they are saying, okay, what are their requirements here? They're listed all here, we're not going to go through all of them. We are living up to all of them with our new Iris product. However, some of our competitors are not even close to living up to that. So therefore, we have what they would consider a competitive advantage against them. It's obviously a bit tricky to see this because we don't know which companies that they're talking about or which products that they're talking about. So again, it's just an indication that from at least the company side, they believe that they have a product that is superior to some of their competitors. And obviously, if they have a moat, then their customers will most likely choose them above the others if the products are superior. So again, it's an interesting slide. We're not going to run through all of the different aspects. It is just to state that Luminar believes they have a superior product compared to other LiDAR competitors. One thing is obviously to have a good product, but you also need to be able to have intellectual property that is protected from being used by other competitors. And again, it's really interesting to see that Luminar Technologies has a comprehensive IP strategy, and they, again, compared to some other LiDAR companies that they're benchmarking themselves against, they have a much broader patent portfolio. So you can see here they have issued 92 plus 4 that has been allowed, and they have 77 that are pending versus a total of 47 from 4 other competitors. And again, the patents are issued within software, within systems, within emitter, within scanner and receiver, so across a broad range of categories where they believe it is necessary to have patents. Luminar Technologies are seeking that, and that's really good to see that they are trying to secure patents on a lot of their technologies, because that's in the end of the day what could give them a competitive advantage against their competitors. So to move a little bit back about the statement that we did earlier about Luminar being a versatile company focusing on the total addressable market, they are trying to illustrate here, what are their valuation compared to some of their competitors, and to illustrate that Luminar is focusing on a wider part of the market. So as of August 2020, they were around $3 billion worth, and they were focusing on, as we said earlier, the passenger vehicles, consumer application on a highway, whereas most of their competitors that you're seeing here is focusing on the robotaxi, on the ride-sharing application with an urban focus. So again, they are focusing on part of their addressable market, but they're much bigger, much more worth. In some cases, obviously, they also have other businesses than what Luminar is focusing on, but they are trying to say, hey, we are an attractive company, we have attractive products, but we are not worth that much. Look at our competitors, they're only focusing on a small part of the market, but they are a lot more worth than we are. You should probably consider to put some money in us. Again, we're not saying that this is, means that Luminar is very cheap in any way, but it's interesting to see that they believe that they are focusing on a much bigger market than some of their competitors who has a much higher market cap. To move a bit more into details in the partnerships, it is very interesting to see that they have partnerships with 75% of the targeted passenger vehicle trucking and robotaxi ecosystem. Again, we do not know the level of detail in the partnerships, how strong, weak they are, whether the automotive manufacturers have, a relationship with each leader company, but at least Luminar has somewhere covered them in on most of them. And we're not going to run through all of them, but we have already covered Toyota, Daimler, Volvo, you have the Volkswagen Group, you have Ford, you have SAIC that we covered in a recent video. On Wuling Motors, you have NIO, you have Daimler, you have Nikola, quite interesting here on the trucking part. Let's hope that they start developing a truck. You have Toyota on the robotaxis, you also have Nvidia, you have Uber, and then the adjacent markets that we touched upon before within the aerospace, defense, construction, mining, etc. So they're covered from a broad perspective, and that's really good to see, and hopefully these partnerships will end up in a lot of revenue for the company, and it will be expanding further to some of the brands that they are missing as of today. On production side of things, some of it is insourced, some of it is outsourced. Basically, the whole develop of the products are being done insourced. They believe that the advantage for them is to do the engineering part, the prototyping, etc. So they have control over the R&D. They can do the assembly and test process. They can easily manage their costs. They have faster cycle times, and they can retain their expertise in IP protection rights. While as on the production side of it, they do not believe that they have a core competency here. So they are outsourcing this part to a low-cost countries. So they have the final sensor assembly in Mexico, and they have key component manufacturing in Thailand. So again, taking the best of both worlds, do what they're good at, and then outsource the part that they believe others can do better and cheaper. On the financial side of things, they are clearly stating that it's first in 2022 and thereafter that revenue will start to increase significantly. In 2020, they expect $15 million in revenue. That will grow with more than 100% 2 years after to $35 million. But it's first thereafter that really started to increase. As you can see, $124 million in 2023, $480 million in 2024, and $837 million is expected in 2025. And over 90% of this is expected to come from the existing partner base. So if they can grow their partnership base, this will obviously go up most likely. They have also stated that from an order book perspective, they experienced a significant increase from August 2020 to November 2020 this year. It went up with 30%, which came from additional volume from the existing customers, but also from new agreements that they have entered into. So again, it is really important to understand that if you invest in this company today, you're not investing in a profitable company. It is first in the future that it expects to generate profits. They expect a gross profit already next year, but they are first expecting a bottom line profit in 2024. And as we can see here on the EBITDA, they are expecting 61 million loss in this year, 90 million loss next year, 88 million the following year, and 51 million in 2023 before they go into the positives. So we will see shortly. It's very important then to understand what kind of cash reserve this company has. Can they sustain these losses in the next year, or will they have to ask for more money to raise equity, basically to pay off the cost that they have before they can generate significant revenue? So to deep into the company structure, it is very important to note that they were recently merged in a SPAC merger, which is a special purpose acquisition company, with Gores Metropolis. So Gores Metropolis is basically like a shell company without any assets in, and they merge, acquire another company, in this case Luminar Technologies. And this was something that happened a few weeks ago. And basically once that is done, Gores Metropolis Inc., that was listed on NASDAQ GMHI, is going to be listed on NASDAQ under Luminar and the new stock ticker symbol LAZR, which you have already seen from the graph that was shown earlier in the video. So what was interesting to understand is at the closure of the transaction, the equity value was 3.4 billion, while as 488 million was assumed in net cash at closing. And again, on a capital structure perspective, it was funded by a combination of Gores Metropolis cash held in a trust account and proceeds from what they call the Series X financing, which is listed up here. We will not go into details with that. But what is important is that the transaction will result in 520 million of cash on the balance sheet to fund the growth. So basically the companies have cash on hand and they can sustain losses over the next years. This does not mean that they will not have to raise more equity in the future. It can definitely still happen. But I would say that they have a quite good cash holdings for what they expect to need over the coming years before Iris product is rolled out and before it starts to become profitable. So finally, let's do a wrap up. What are the pros we see with Luminar Technologies? Well, they have a market that will grow significantly in the coming 10 years, at least according to most people, not Elon Musk. So it's going to be interesting to see. We think that Luminar have interesting and competitive products, maybe not as competitive as they think themselves. We think that there are other good companies as well out in the LiDAR space, but still they seem to have or are in the process of developing a very interesting product. And last but not least, they have entered into a lot of interesting partnerships and they're covering a lot of the automotive manufacturers, and they may expand that over the coming years. So that's a good foundation for revenue growth. What are some of the cons or risks that we see? Well, the first one is that Luminar Technologies is still a young company and it faces perhaps some execution risk when it's going to do a ramp up in production in the coming years. The entire automotive LiDAR market is expected to grow to 2.5 billion in 2025. However, Luminar is being valued at approximately 2 times of the entire market. If they capture 1/3 of all the sales, the stock is still selling as of today about 6.3 times 2025 sales. And they just recently had a short attack from Citroën spiraling the share price down. They have managed to regain a little bit in the last days, but it has still dropped significantly. So what is the final verdict that we have? Well, we will closely follow the share price of Luminar, and if it drops sufficiently further, we will actually enter into a position with them and we will keep it for a long time, for 5-10 years. Most likely what we will do is to spread our risk into 2 LiDAR stocks. We will not only bet on one stock simply because there's a lot of uncertainty about who is actually going to be the winner in this space. The other one that we have kept an eye on is Velodyne, and we are thinking about covering that in a separate video, so please let us know if that has your interest. That was all we had for today. We really hope you enjoyed this video. Please note we are not professional financial advisors and this is only done for entertainment purposes. Please give us a like. The It really helps with the algorithm. Please subscribe for future content, and please, nonetheless, put a comment in the comment section, especially if you have some input to Luminar, which we have not covered in this video. We always appreciate your input. Besides that, there's not much more to say than have a great day. Hasta la vista. See you next time.